and welcome. This is the No Balls podcast, but what you are watching today is Doom Scroll Sunday. It is the inaugural weekly episode that I'll be doing. It actually probably won't become a weekly thing for a while, but yeah, I figured right now would be the best time to implement this first week. I did attempt recording something else like this over the past. Never really worked out. But here we are. The entire purpose of this is to get more free-flowing conversation going. When we do our NBA episodes, we are slightly more scripted. Kind of just, we have a basic path that we're going to follow, and we try to stay as close to that course as we try to. Here, I will literally, like, it's Doom Scroll Saturday. Like, I will be scrolling. I will have basic topics that I want to cover, but, whatever comes up across my feed is what I'm going to be talking about. This will primarily be to serve, I guess, to technically get clips to surface around the internet. We'll see how that goes. I have to address the elephant in the room. Sheldon and I have not been able to record over the past week. We were prepared and did record the Cavs and the Mavericks episodes. Those episodes got corrupted. Here we are. It's been a week since we posted. We're going to have to audible out of our once every 3 days upload schedule, which would have lined up perfectly with the 22nd of October, which is the start of the NBA season. Instead, this will be coming out on the 15th, which is the day it will be recorded, and we'll be doing every other day, and that will line us up to basically being right on schedule. Other than that, I guess I'll just go ahead and get started. The general premise here is I will have my phone. I will doom scroll on the phone. Not really doom scroll, but I will scroll and find a simple topic that I do want to give maybe a couple minutes to talk about. The first thing that I have here is coming from YouTube. It's coming from Andrew Finney. Everybody knows him. He's the Reels, the YouTube Shorts GOAT for basically every sport. I really love his what he does. It says Jonathan Kuminga ceiling in the NBA. All-star, starter on a good team, starter on a bad team, bench player, what he's been. So, basic premise, I'm going to look at the poll. 17% people say all-star, 58% people say starter on a good team, 19% say starter on a bad team, and then the other 6% say bench player. I think I'll go ahead and give my piece on Kuminga. I think in the current free agency standoff that's happening, I think Kuminga has been offered the most fair amount of money. I think yesterday it was reported that he was offered almost $76 million over 3 seasons. I think that's pretty fair for Jonathan Kuminga. So I really can't say he's somebody who's getting screwed over by restricted free agency. I think he's getting fair offers for the talent that he has currently been. That being said, he's played 4 years in the league. He's maybe 23 years old at this current moment. He's very talented, and he's got raw talent. So there is things to be excited about with Jonathan Kuminga. If you go and look in the comments, obviously the consensus here is that he will be a starter on a good team. Do I think that? Potentially. I think it would be a really weird fit to have a good team with Jonathan Kuminga as a starter. I think one of the comments here says, I feel like he could turn into an Aaron Gordon type of player on a championship team. I don't think that's the case. I saw somebody saying he's basically Andrew Wiggins. I don't think that's the case either. And let me give you the reason why I disagree with those two things. Because Aaron Gordon and Andrew Wiggins, both of them are these super athletic, big wings. So the obvious comparison to Jonathan Kuminga is there, right? They're big, tall wings who have on-ball scoring skill, and in the initial part of their careers, their all-around game were not together. Kuminga's really struggled to stay on the floor. Intelligence-wise, not saying he's stupid, but he doesn't process the game super well. That's very similar to Wiggins, Aaron Gordon. Those guys get onto good teams and eventually become high-level role players with Wiggins and Aaron Gordon. The thing is, with Kuminga, he is already on a very good team. And he's been on a very good team for his whole career. His rookie season, we'll give him a pass there. That was a championship-worthy team. Other than that, though, like, he's been on some pretty decent Warriors teams that could use somebody who could go out there and be a hustle player and play defense and just give them a little bit extra on offense compared to your typical defense first guys. But like, he hasn't done those things. Aaron Gordon, his entire career, was somebody who was overtasked in Orlando. And once he was put into a lesser situation, that's when you saw his all-around game really start to flourish. Kuminga's already in that lessened role and hasn't been able to show the type of things that Wiggins and Gordon were able to show after they weren't in a featured role. That's why I'm a little bit more skeptical on Kuminga in that light. Where do I think he lands? I think he could be a starter on a bad team right now, like, very easily. And then, like, I don't think there's really any difference between a bench player and a starter on a bad team. Like, if you're a starter on a bad team, you're realistically a bench player on a good team, is what that is inferring. Like, he could start on the Hornets right now. He'd be their starting. But, like, what is he doing that's that much different than what Miles Bridges can do on a basketball court? Yeah, I don't really know. And, that's type of bag that he's getting in free agency right now, and he's turning it down. I think the Kuminga situation is really weird. I guess this is technically talking about his ceiling, and like, his ceiling is obviously through the roof because he's 6'8" and very athletic. But um, yeah, I think realistically it's probably going to be a starter on a bad team or a bench player on a good team. It's really hard to find the fit because he's not a super great shooter. He can't play on the ball too much because he's not a good on-ball passer or off-ball passer. And then defensively, he's just not there yet. As of right now, like, I think his restricted free agency case is really interesting because it directly will affect Benedict Mathurin in a season, because I think more or less they're the same type of player. And I think even like the stalling of Cam Thomas's market to where he took the qualifying offer was really interesting, because what does that mean for Kobe White in the ensuing offseason? Though Kobe White's probably a good bit better than Cam Thomas. So there's the Jonathan Kuminga bit. Let's see if there's any other things. I think yes, yeah, somebody says he doesn't want to be Aaron Gordon, he wants to be LeBron James. I think that's another part of it. Like, Kuminga every step of the way has made it seem like he wants a much bigger role. And yeah, that's a big reason why he hasn't caught on yet, is he wants to be a star and he hasn't become a starter yet, is the issue. I think he could get one all-star appearance. I think he could be like an Aaron Gordon type of player, says YouTube user. Again, I've given my piece. Ceiling is Wiggins. Again, I've given my piece. I mean, he could, obviously, but I would think that a player who is wired to do those type of things would be doing those things if he's in a lessened role. I think the reason Wiggins and Aaron Gordon did flash in those aspects, again, is because they were primary featured guys. Yeah, I'll move forward to the next interesting thing. Yeah, I can talk about the Kawhi stuff. I think the Kawhi stuff is really fun. Um, I think the most recent evidence of the Dennis it's Wang, is it Wang? Um, his $1.9 million payment that went straight to aspiration, right before Kawhi Leonard's $1.75 million payment was supposed to go through, is some pretty damning evidence, like, especially because the company was already like not filing, but being investigated and potentially bankrupt at that time. Um, I think that's some pretty like significant evidence, and I think what a lot of people are mentioning with that is like it is directly not really, correlated, and causation aren't the same thing, but there is a correlation to his games played before and after that payment. So I think that could be some really good evidence. I think the one thing that could stop that from completely going through is the Clippers minority owner who made that investment did have a daughter working at Aspiration, and that could be enough to argue that he just wanted to ensure that she would stay employed, or there's enough argument that I think the Clippers could make to where, like, if they really argue everything well, and like the reports that we are never going to see do look favorable for the Clippers that the NBA gets their hands on, if those things look good for the Clippers, they can probably make that argument and get away with it. Do I think they did it? I think they did it a little bit. I think Ballmer's interview was like pretty strong, and I think there was a good case. But I think this most recent evidence has made me think that, like, they probably did it. It's just it's going to be very hard to prove. Because with this type of a thing, they either circumvented the salary cap or they didn't, and it's going to be very hard. Like, there's no in between gray area there, so it's going to be a lot of means to prove on the side of the NBA. So we'll just have to see. Moving forward, this is coming from the SRS channel for all the rebuilders. Next NBA star to get traded, and it has Devin Booker, Zion, Giannis, and Joel Embiid. Currently, the leading guy is Zion. Okay, I completely don't think that's the case. There's 4 avenues in a Zion trade, right? Or not 4 avenues, but 4 situations that could transpire this season. The Pelicans are good, and Zion is good. In that case, there's no reason for the Pelicans to move Zion because they're good and Zion is good. They want to have one of their good players to continue to be good. The Pelicans are good, Zion is not good. In that case, the Pelicans are a good team. They are going to potentially want to trade Zion, but if Zion's not good, he's not going to have trade value. I don't think that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand. Sure, Zion was a number 1 pick. If he's not good, there's a clause in his contract where he can just be released and have no cap hit. And that's very uncommon in the NBA. So if he's not good, he's just going to get released in that situation, especially if the Pelicans are good. If the Pelicans are not good and Zion is not good, that's another case that could happen. Pelicans, like, if they want to move off of Zion, he wasn't good, so they'll probably just release him in that scenario. Or if they do, like, want to keep him, in that scenario, well, they'd obviously just keep him. But, like, if he's not good, he's going to get released, is what it is. And then the one situation is if Zion is a good player this season and the Pelicans are a bad team. And that is compelling. Like, if that's the case, then I could see it happening. It's just like, how are the Pelicans going to be a super bad team to where they have to move Zion if Zion is a good team or a good player this upcoming season? Because it could very well happen that Zion has a bounce back season, his value replenishes, and he's not somebody who's just getting released to end a cap hit. But I think the more likely scenario there is if Zion's good, the Pelicans might be pretty decent. They might make a play-in appearance, and the Pelicans will want to hold on to him, even if the team wasn't very good outside of Zion. And they'll make moves around what he does. I think the most possible chance is if Zion is not good in neither of the Pelicans, they could trade him to somebody who has shit money on their books, and that other team could use Zion as a way to get off of money by just releasing him once they get him. And I don't think that counts because he just wouldn't even play on the next team. I don't think Zion gets traded. Who out of this list? Zion, Giannis, Joel Embiid, and Devin Booker. I think Joel Embiid's like kind of untradeable. That contract's terrible. Don't touch it with a 10,000-foot pole type of bad. I think it's like probably Giannis. There's a good chance the Bucks suck again this season. And he could ask out next offseason. I think he's kind of wanting to see, like, how good is this thrown together team going to be in a weak Eastern Conference? It could be a 4 seed. It could be a 4 seed. I don't think it'll be a team that's taken very seriously come playoff time, regardless of what the regular season looks like. And then Devin Booker's hard because he did sign that pretty rough extension that is super far in advance. And Devin Booker could just get traded. It's going to be hard to trade him on that contract. But with how Phoenix is building their team, like they don't have zero good players on their roster. So I think they're going to keep it Devin Booker on the roster, try to build around him. It's just they do need to have a defensive infrastructure around him. They need to have a point guard who can handle a ton of playmaking responsibilities. They don't quite have that just yet. And I think that's going to be what ultimately slows them down in this next era in Phoenix. Even if, like, Dillon Brooks is not a bad player. Ryan Dunn could be something. They have 3 centers who might be pretty good, and Nick Richards is a 4th who's not terrible. Outside of that, they still have Royce O'Neal, who's a very good NBA player. Even if it is a 7th man, he's there. Grayson Allen is not a bad player. Jalen Green is a good bench player at this point in his career. They have a ton of stuff that it's not nothing. It's just all of their assets are in their roster. They don't have any tradable. Well, they have probably a couple tradable picks, but they don't have much as far as tradable assets. So it is all within this roster. So I don't see a way for them to do a rebuild by trading Devin Booker, because they're going to have to get extremely lucky with another team's picks that they trade Devin Booker to. So no way. And then yeah, I would say my answer here is definitely Giannis is the most tradable. Pretty easy. If Milwaukee's pretty bad and Giannis is putting up a ton of empty stats and he hates that, then yeah, I would say that's definitely the one of those guys who could get traded. SRS has SROS. I think it's S. Ross is how he says it. Best role player here: T.J. McConnell, Dante DiVincenzo, Keanu Ellis, and Sam Hauser. It's actually really tough. I think you can have arguments for all of them. McConnell is easily winning the poll because the finals run. It's most recent in everybody's mind. I think Keanu Ellis is kind of the lock to be very much appreciated once he's on a good team that has some type of novelty to them. It's literally the Derek White formula. It's a bench guard who plays defense, can kind of shoot the ball a little bit, can kind of make the ball a little bit, and is going to end up on a good team in a year or so that will make the playoffs eventually. He'll get a good first contract extension, and then he will severely outplay that contract on the next team that he's on. I really hope he ends up on a good team, because Sacramento is just doing devious things by not letting Keanu Ellis play huge minutes. Sam Hauser could prove himself this season for Boston. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he does such a thing. They're going to have a ton of minutes available. Sam Hauser could start. I don't think he will, but he could start this upcoming season. Dante DiVincenzo, everybody knows Dante DiVincenzo because of his big Knicks run. He's a great movement shooter. He's a great on-ball shooter even too, and doesn't give up too much defensively. I think out of all of these guys, though, I would say Keanu Ellis is probably the best role player here. But TJ McConnell, I think, is probably the next guy. I don't know. There's just all of these are very good players. I would say Hauser's probably a tick below the other 3 guys. But TJ McConnell, Keanu Ellis, Dante DiVincenzo, love having those guys in a playoff rotation, even if some of TJ McConnell does have his shooting limitations. Yeah, S. Ross again. Speaking, Jaylen Brown, John Morant, Paolo Banchero, and Karl Anthony Towns. Who is the best of these 4 players? In my opinion, currently, I think the best player here, I would argue, is either Towns or Brown. John Morant is tough. His availability has been so slim. I hate playing the availability game, but it's been so hit or miss these past couple seasons. Even when he's been on the court, I mean, when he's been on the floor, he's still been pretty much Ja Morant. It's just I'm still concerned about like the long term limitations to a team built around Ja Morant. His playoff numbers are great in his career, obviously, but once you get to a playoff, you know, uh, run, you have this non-shooting guard that teams can, repeatedly go under screens on. There's just not too many examples of that happening as like your best offensive player being a formula to win games. Obviously, if he improves as a pull-up shooter, Ja Morant will probably be the best player on this list. Jaylen Brown, I think just the bias of the Celtics recently winning the championship gets him a long way here. He was second in the poll to Paolo Banchero. Um, yeah, I mean, I get it. Jaylen Brown's good. He's very good defensively. I think if he was on a team that didn't have Jason Tatum, who's like kind of a lineup cheat code, people would realize how much of a lineup cheat code Jaylen Brown is. Um, but he's the second best player on his team that plays a certain type of role that he plays. Um, Jaylen Brown can, play at the point of attack a little bit better than Jason Tatum. But yeah, I would say Jaylen Brown is probably my number two guy here. Towns, I think the shot threat from the 4, the 5 position is just, it brings worlds to an offense. I think he's best used as a 4. Um, but using him at the 5 is like kind of a cheat code to like you have a top 3 offense if he's at the 5 with like respectable offensive talent around him, which most certainly is on the Knicks. Paolo Banchero, I'm really excited for what the next couple years hold with Paolo Banchero. I'm just gonna pump the brakes a little bit. I think I did it last year pretty correctly. And I'm gonna pump the brakes again. I still think he's gonna be like probably a top 50 player this upcoming season, but I think everybody watches opening week and everybody watches the playoffs, and those were the best 10 games of Paolo's career, were this opening week and this year's playoffs against Boston. Outside of that, Paolo had like a really rough season. A lot of it was or injury related, but I would just say let's see Paolo actually play like an MVP caliber player before we're locking him into being an MVP caliber player. Look back at what we did in our Magic episode, and we were like, Paolo is very good. Obviously, we're not going to say he's not very good, but they have consistently shown to be much better with Franz Wagner on the floor than with Paolo on the floor. And it's just been a consistent trend over the past 2 years, I think. We'll just ultimately have to see with Paolo. Give him a full healthy season. Yeah, that's what I would have to say. More on that note. Never mind. No more on that note. Um, yeah. So there's another injury reported. Thomas Sorber has torn his ACL. I don't know if I believe this. The Thunder. Are we sure that this is their third rookie in a row that's come up with a season-ending injury? There's no reason for this to be a fake thing. It's not a fake thing. I wish Thomas Sorber the best in his ACL recovery. Yeah, I mean, that's just really tough for a young guy who he was dealing with a foot injury at the end of his college career. He was a prospect that I liked a ton going into the year. I had him as a near lottery pick, which didn't mean a lot in this draft because there were a ton of lottery picks. So, he was like the 17th prospect in this draft for me, but I really like Thomas Sorber. And I'm just going to ultimately have to see what he looks like coming off of a foot injury and an ACL injury. I guess I'll talk about the Cam Thomas qualifying offer. I think it's pretty dumb for Cam Thomas to take this deal. Reported, I believe there was a 1-year, $11 million offer out there to him, and I don't see why he wouldn't just take that. I understand he now has a no-trade clause. But the thing is with that no trade clause is it essentially makes him untradeable for Brooklyn because in order for a team to trade for Cam Thomas, any player signing the qualifying offer will not have bird rights for the team that they are going to if they get traded. So if Cam Thomas, let's say, gets traded to Milwaukee, that's a team that's been floated around for them. Milwaukee will not be able to go over the cap to re-sign Cam Thomas without using like their mid-level exception or like a room exception if they have that, or using cap space. And it greatly decreases the amount of teams that will be able to play in the market trade wise for Cam Thomas. If I were him, and obviously I've never been anywhere close to the position of Cam Thomas, but I would have taken one of the offers presented by Brooklyn, because then you would at least have the ability to, if you sign that 1 year deal, you enter free agency still in the next season. I understand you're not in control of your destiny, but I don't think you are anyway. Like, you might not start this season for Brooklyn because they're not going to get anything out of you in a trade anyway because of the situation that's transpired. Because let's say Cam Thomas does play well for Brooklyn, and he's put himself in a position to get a bag next offseason. No team is going to trade for Cam Thomas unless they are a bad team that will have cap space next offseason, in which case, why would they trade anything to get Cam Thomas when they can just wait a season because they're a bad team that will have cap space? In position of Cam Thomas playing this upcoming season, if he's bad, he just turned away like double the money, if not way more, just to have a no trade clause, which I think is being very much overrated in this instance, because it's really not guaranteed that he will be able to increase his value this offseason. Even now, the best way for him to get paid next summer is by Brooklyn. I would have just taken the highest number of Brooklyn. Of no possibility of getting traded to another team and them re-signing you, because if they're it's just such a head scratching decision on part of Cam Thomas, and I'm sure there's a plan with him and his agent. I just don't see what it is. It doesn't make any sense to me right now why he would play it this way. Other than that, though, I mean, he did play very good last season, and we haven't talked about Brooklyn yet this summer, but we will be soon. Maybe not super soon, but they will be one of the teams we are talking about uh, in the coming years or so, or in the coming weeks. Obviously before the season starts. I guess I'll shift focus a little bit off the NBA. It's been 30 minutes of talking about the NBA. I can talk about other sports. People don't realize that we are not legally abided to talk about other or just the NBA. I did record a version of this like 2 weeks ago, and I was talking about the NFL, and I said I was talking about the NFC teams, and I said the Green Bay Packers I think are very interesting, but they're missing a huge impact player on their front four, and they've since traded for Micah Parsons. I think they're kind of legit. Like, they've been really good these first two games against like two teams that I thought were pretty like getting a little bit overrated, with Detroit after losing all of their brain drain, and Washington, who kind of just I'm not enthused by their offense situation over there in Washington. But still, like, their defense looked awesome. And when the trade originally went down, I was like, I want to see what it looks like first, because Green Bay's offense or defense still like wasn't great last season. I'm not sure how Micah Parsons. I mean, I think they were like close to a top 10 defense, but they like couldn't beat good teams. They couldn't stop. They're probably one of the favorites to come out of the NFC. Like, them and Philly are probably the two favorites now. Other than that, man, Joe Burrow, like, dude, please stay healthy. The Bengals are definitely a very cursed team, because they either start the year horribly, or they, this year they win their first two games, but Joe Burrow is now set to miss 3 months. Um, as somebody building their fantasy team around Joe Burrow, Come on, dude. And like this is a dynasty super flex league, meaning there's two quarterbacks. Like, come on, Joe Burrow. Like we gotta stay healthy. Because now I'm starting Michael Penix, I guess. Like, geez, dude. Thankfully, I have a good squad. Otherwise, I might be able to, stay intact. But I don't know how much else I want to talk about today. The Mets are struggling. They're currently on an off day. Let's see if we find a way to lose. Um, Other than that, I don't really have too much. MLB playoffs coming around will be good. We've shifted away from the MLB podcasts. Not in a really like intentional decision. It's hard to navigate running two podcasts. So here we are. We'll probably bring in a couple of off-season episodes talking about our reflecting on predictions, but I think that will be the extent that we carry the MLB podcasts from here on out. We'll reflect on my top 100 rankings going into the season. We'll probably go back and see who we predicted to win the divisions. We did have some bold predictions. We'll probably look at those, but outside of those things, that's probably all we'll do. I'll make a top 100 again next season. And NBA top 50 will be before the season again, just like it was last year. Hope I do about it. I think I did pretty well. I'll actually let me go back and revisit my top 50 going into the season because I don't think I gave myself enough credit for how this list shaped forward. I'll actually just pull it up on my phone because, uh, of course, the internet is slow right now. All right, we're back. All right, so top 50 going into the season. So on the 50 through 41 page, see, a lot of these guys wouldn't still be there. Evan Mobley, I definitely had too low, but a lot of people wouldn't have had Mobley top 50 going into the season. I did have Jared Allen over him. Like 7 spots over him. I would say that's, definitely wrong, but didn't age terribly. Having Cade in the top 50 was a general W. I had him next to Paolo in the top 40, or around the top 40. That's objectively pretty good. Herb Jones played 20 games this season. I think if you would have played, having him at 41 would have been very respectable. Porzingis just wasn't a top 32 player this season. That one, like, I guess you could have foresaw it with him not playing games, but yeah, Maxey had a rough year with all the 76er bullshit. I don't think much of that's on Maxey himself. DeRozan, just I wouldn't have as high as I had him if I was doing this list today. I think a lot of I just got DeMar DeRozan's an interesting player and is going to be the hardest player to look at ever going into, looking back on his career after he retires because he will finish top 15 all time in scoring, and he probably was never even a top 20 player at one time within an NBA season. That's crazy, right? That's what people say about Mike Evans. In the top 30, I think like the only real misses here, like I'll just read Jaylen Brown, Jimmy Butler, Chet, De'Aaron Fox, Jamal Murray, Victor Wembanyama, probably too low at 25, but that was pretty aggressive at the time. Put Wemby there, Kyrie Irving, Damian Lillard, James Harden, John Morant. I think those are all pretty good. Now 20, Bam Adebayo, I think that's too high. But he would have been like a couple, like probably like 10 to 15 spots lower instead of 20. Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Edwards, Trae Young, Paul George. Anthony Edwards is obviously ascended. I think, if I knew Anthony Edwards was going to become one of the best 3-point shooters in the league, I would have had him a lot higher. I just like nobody would have foresaw the shooting development he had going into the year. I think my best prediction and my worst prediction are right next to each other at 15. Kevin Durant, exactly where I would have him going into this next season. We'll see how that shapes out when I rank players again. Steph Curry at 14. I grouped him with Durant. I should have grouped him with LeBron James. Steph Curry was so awesome in the playoffs. Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell were also 13 and 12. Domantas Sabonis is an L. Should have known. Never buy into a Kings player. Domantas Sabonis, I probably should have had like the 30s. As somebody who hates the counting numbers, I got fooled by the counting numbers with Sabonis. LeBron, Tatum, Anthony Davis, Halliburton, Brunson. I would have had, looking back on how the season unfolded, I would have had Brunson and Halliburton below the three guys ahead of them. But I like those guys as the 10 best players this past season. Then Shea, Giannis, Luka, Embiid, and Jokic. Obviously, nobody really. Like Embiid was like so awesome in 2024 before he got hurt. He might not ever play again. But I do like where I had Embiid otherwise. And then like I think this is shaped out really good. I think I got the same 10 players that if you would ask me after the season, outside of Embiid, I would say those are the 9 best players this past season. So I think that's great. And I think Anthony Edwards would have been the 10th guy probably. Other than that, what do I have to talk about today? I mean, that'll probably be all. You'll see these coming out incrementally. It depends. If next Sunday we do not have an episode, we will not actually. So next Sunday you might still see a Doom Scroll Sunday episode. It will not be recorded on Sunday. I will be watching NFL football, but you might still see one of these. So keep your eyes peeled. Other than that, Mavs will be coming out in 2 days. We're recording it later today. Have fun anticipating that. I will as well. So we'll see you guys then.